Pleasant day, everyone. I am Lovely B. Mendoza, your reporter for the second part of Servant Leadership. But before we go any further, let me just ask, how are you? I hope that you're all doing well. Tracing the growing impact of servant leadership, let's start it by discussing servant leadership as an institutional model. Servant leadership principles are being applied in significant ways in a half dozen major areas. The first area has to do with servant leadership as an institutional model and philosophy. Servant leadership crosses all boundaries and is being applied by a wide variety of people working with for-profit businesses, not-for-profit corporations, and churches, universities, healthcare, and foundations. This type of leadership has influenced and passed different areas and fields, and it is indeed helpful in managing people working in businesses and organizations who are basically aiming to generate income or profit. So some examples of a for-profit businesses, organizations, and corporations include any shop, restaurant, and supermarket. So they are primarily existing as they want to earn or generate income or profit higher than what they spend. In this case, the owner of a for-profit businesses, organizations, and corporations may share their profit or income to the workers. That is why we have this what we called profit sharing scheme. And even those not-for-profit organizations or corporations who are paying attention on how to keep itself running and going. The aim of those organizations or corporations is that to help the community. They are existing because they believe that they are destined to help the society. They have educational, welfare, and charitable purposes. And mostly, the income is greatly affected and influenced by the donations, grants, and subscriptions. Servant leadership also lies in teaching and enhancing the capabilities of individuals who are working in religious institutions, schools, universities, healthcare centers, and foundations. Servant leadership advocates a group-oriented approach to analysis and decision-making as a means of strengthening institutions and improving society. Servant leadership in school concept. It is for the school administrations, heads, and faculties to work with students or learners and allow them to take part in decision-making. As we believe that students have the ability and of course the right to know their own behavior so they can know where they can stand. Through that, they can set limit for themselves. And if students are able to determine their own behavior, it is vital for school workers as this helps them to make students more engaged and more productive citizens, vital in strengthening and enhancing the society. It also emphasizes the power of persuasion and seeking consensus over the old top-down form of leadership. The top-down style is often used by leaders who want as much as control over the decision-making process as possible. So meaning, the tasks, the goals, and the projects are being determined and held by the leaders of businesses, corporations, administrations, organizations, and so forth. And that is something we do not emphasize in servant leadership. That is why servant leadership as much as possible aims to emphasize the ability to persuade people and aims to emphasize that there should be order or agreement in between. Students or learners and even workers should learn how to work with their leaders, and of course, leaders likewise. Each should learn how to work as a group to resolve the problems for the best interest of the whole. Servant leadership, therefore, aims to educate people of different culture to serve people and the society as a whole in effective and good manner. Any reflection? Many individuals within institutions have adopted servant leadership as a guiding philosophy, for it really has huge effects in managing people and preparing most especially students to become productive and more engaged citizens of their respective nations. In business, servant leadership holds that the primary purpose of it should be to create a positive impact on its employees and community, rather than using profit as the sole motive. An increasing number of companies have adopted servant leadership as part of their corporate philosophy or as a foundation for their mission statement. Among these are the Toro Company in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Synovus Financial Corporation in Columbus, Georgia. And additional information, if you are aware of TD Industries, one of the earliest practitioners of servant leadership in the corporate setting, is a Dallas-based heating and plumbing contracting firm that has consistently ranked in the top 10 of Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for in America. Any reflection? Education and training for not-for-profit trustees. A second major application of servant leadership is its pivotal role as the theoretical and ethical basis for trustee education. Servant leadership says that Board of Trustees need to go to a radical and extreme shift in how they come up with their roles, responsibilities, and purposes. A trustee who wants to be a servant leader can definitely contribute in creating institutions like schools of a great depth and quality. So, servant leadership is vital in advocating policies, projects, and programs for people, most especially students. And because of this, the Board of Trustees become more accountable and more responsible of assessing educational policies which could be helpful in helping students to completely develop and grow. Greenleaf wrote extensively on servant leadership as it applies to the roles of boards of directors and trustees within institutions. His essays on these applications are widely distributed among directors of for-profit and non-profit organizations. In his essay, Trustees as Servants, Greenleaf urged trustees to ask themselves two central questions: whom do you serve and for what purpose? Any reflection? Community leadership programs. A third application of servant leadership concerns its deepening role in community leadership organizations across the country. So the third application simply focuses on leadership programs. M. Scott Peck says the following in A World Waiting to be Born. In his work on servant leadership, Greenleaf posited that the world will be saved if it can develop just three truly well-managed large institutions, one in the private sector, one in the public sector, and one in the non-profit sector. He believed that such excellence in management will be achieved through an organizational culture of civility, routinely utilizing the mode of community. Any reflection? Service learning programs. A fourth application involves servant leadership and experiential education. During the past 25 years, experiential education programs of all sorts have sprung up in virtually every college and university, and increasingly in secondary schools too. The fourth application has something to do with experiences and reflections proceeding to learning and development. Talking about experiential education, or the process of learning by doing, it is highly believed that through educators, the students are purposefully be engaged in direct experiences and focused reflection so to gain and increase knowledge, to grow more and develop capabilities and skills, to have a wider and clearer understanding of values, and develop their capacity to help and contribute to their communities. So, experiential educators do not solely focus on educators found in schools or universities, but it includes the wide range of professionals such as therapists, coaches, mental health professionals, counselors, and many more. There are many disciplines and settings utilize experiential education methodologies. It can be outdoor and adventure education, place-based education, project-based learning, and more. To become a good servant leader, students in experiential education is actively sharing questions, investigating, experimenting, solving problems, and constructively criticizing. The relationships are being nurtured and developed. Learner to his or herself, learner to other stakeholders, learner to community, and learner to the world as a whole. The result of learning is personal and form the basis of future experiences. By engaging students in hands-on experiences and reflections, they can be able to tie different theories and knowledge they learn inside the classroom to real-world situations. So, some commonly examples of this include internships, on-the-job trainings, conducting research, student teaching, and of course, community service. Therefore, experiential education or learning by doing is now a part of most students' educational experience. Any reflection? Leadership education. A fifth application of servant leadership concerns its use in both formal and informal education and training programs. This is actually happens through leadership and management courses in universities and colleges, as well as through corporate training programs. There are numbers of courses for undergraduate and graduate students which highly related on management and leadership. And those courses definitely incorporate servant leadership within their course curricula. Several universities and colleges nowadays offer specific courses on servant leadership. In the area of corporate education programs, refers to the system of professional development activities provided to educate employee. It may consist of formal university or college training or informal training provided by non-collegiate institutions. Many groups of leadership and management consultants nowadays are currently utilizing servant leadership materials as part of their ongoing work with corporations and other organizations, businesses, and institutions. By the use of internal training and education, institutions are discovering that servant leadership can truly improve how business is developed and conducted while still successfully turning a profit. Any reflection? Personal transformation. A sixth application of servant leadership involves its use in programs relating to personal growth and transformation. Servant leadership is not solely for the development of the self and for the betterment of personal level, but it also works and operates at institutional level. Majority says that it offers a means to personal growth, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and of course professionally. Servant leadership is that It encourages everyone to actively seek opportunities to both serve and lead others, thereby setting up the potential for raising the quality of life throughout society. In order to become an effective servant leader, an individual should learn how to focus on people and community. An individual should encourage the growth and well-being of people and the community which they belong to. A servant leader thus share his or her capabilities and powers, knows how to prioritize, and knows how to provide the needs of his or her people. The good and effective servant leaders are able to lead the society, putting the needs of other individuals before their own. That would be the end of the topic servant leadership. I hope that you learned a lot. See you again in Sustaining Change. Bye!